Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. All the way up. I'm all the way up. I'm all the way up.
All the way up.
All the way up. Well, good morning, Vietnam.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the Money Matrix podcast, where smart money finds a smarter way.
You're going to get smarter, Ronan.
Oh, thank God.
This is for you, Ronan. Today's episode is for you. So it's interesting. We had a lot of things happen.
Well, first of all, who are you?
Oh,
Who are
I'm
you?
Meyer Dalal.
No, but really, who are you?
Yeah, exactly. Who really are you? I'm Alan Hastings.
I'm Ronan Fishman.
So today we're witnessing possibly a perfect storm in the policy changes that could really change the financial future. And, you know, the market had significant breakthroughs. And is this what we've been waiting for? I don't know. But you know what? We're definitely on a trajectory here. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We're going to unpack today Trump's new relationship with Fed Chairman Powell. He's in love again.
Is he?
And he's not firing him, and he never was going to fire him, and they're
Why would
best
you think
friends.
that? Yeah.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I didn't think it was going to happen ever.
Right.
We're going to talk about China. All the tariffs are going to be rearranged and realigned. We're going to talk about Tesla's miss and how that relates to the market, and Elon stepping back from Doge.
That's
It's
a
going to
lot.
be fun-filled. It's going to be packed with information. And most importantly, we're going to make it happen.
Yeah, we are. So you were saying the start is Trump doesn't want to fire Powell anymore. That's some news.
Now,
That never
all,
happened.
all of a sudden,
You know,
nothing. He never said that, which is kind of interesting. But either way, the guy's good. And he realized, obviously he realized when he saw what's happening in the market and all the instability. And again, Monday was a bloodbath. And he just realized if he continues on this path, it's going to be a disaster. I mean, the consumer sentiment, the unhappiness, the unease in the markets, where everything was getting now risk-based pricing. The markets were putting in risk-based pricing, interest rates. You know, people were talking about stagflation, recession, everything. You know, I think that shows a lot of, I don't know what the right word is, but Trump basically eating his words a little bit and saying, hey, listen, let me just calm the whole situation down. I want him to reduce rates, and hopefully we'll make the market and the economy in a way where we can reduce rates.
yeah. Now, question for both of you guys. Do you think that Powell's done a good job so far? Do you think that, we discussed a little bit that he was slow in general, but do you think that what he's done historically in the last 5 years has shown that he can be trusted? Like, do you like his policy?
So, when you talk about the Fed, their job is not to do a good job or a bad job. Good is one-sided, bad is one-sided. Their job is to make sure that they get ahead of the problems and make sure that organically markets, communities, individuals benefit from a steady, safe, consistent playing field so they can do whatever it is that they do to add value to their own lives, to their own businesses, etc. So as long as you don't see any major, dips or anything that would be detrimental to an economy, they're doing their job. And I guess that would constitute a good job. But their job is to do the things that are hard. Like they see past the factors that we know in on a whopping margin. So overall, I think that they're doing a fantastic job because the United States is still a powerhouse economically. Yes, trillions have been lost, not due to their policy.
Right.
But the best thing that they did do is almost do nothing, which is, common strategies for value investors, right? Like you're in it for the long haul, you're set it and forget it. And that's kind of how they look at things. And then they adjust accordingly. They didn't cave into pressure. I don't think that Trump is wrong in what he's saying. I think Trump said, this is what happens if we don't get our way, but it's hurting us more than it's hurting everybody else. Plus, you got the midterm elections that you have to start thinking about. He's like 4 months into his presidency. So you now have to kind of look at all these factors that are like, okay, well, how much damage am I actually causing?
Right.
But the partners that he's trying to get something out of will now sit at the table in a more rational way as opposed to with a gun to their head.
So, in your opinion, so far the Fed's done a decent job.
I think
And,
they've done a fantastic job
and Meyer, what did you?
consistently for
No.
years.
Excellent.
I agree with that. I just want to shed some light real quick just on this one decision, Trump and Powell getting remarried again. The 10-year Treasury immediately dipped and now is down to 4.33%. The S&P just this morning jumped 2.7%, and the bank stocks rallied 3.6% just within hours of this happening. Now let's look at Powell's tenure.
Right.
He was put into office in 2018 by Trump.
Mhm.
And when he got in, we saw crazy things happen, COVID, and he took Fed fund rates all the way down to zero because we had no choice and we were in one of the biggest economic booms. And then on the flip side, he raised rates so quickly too because inflation was at 9.1% at the peak. Now we're hovering at around 2.3%. That's a phenomenal job. I
Yeah.
mean, other countries would have collapsed. I
Right.
mean, he took the biggest economic engine in the world and was able to navigate through 9% inflation and didn't get out of control and brought it down systematically and methodically. Yes, do I think he could have been faster on the uptake from the beginning and now also looking at it? But at the end of the day, the guy did it. He's a stellar, he's a champ. He did what he had to do. And you know what? I appreciate the fact that he didn't break under pressure.
Right.
Right.
And he was not the puppet that everyone thought he could be,
yeah.
even though he was nominated by Trump. I appreciate the fact that he stood in the fire and he said, "This is who I am. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do what's right for the country."
And he did that through both presidencies that he served through.
Yeah.
Right. He never changed what he was saying. He always said, I believe in this. I believe in that. I'm going to do this. And that's his job. So, yeah.
The reality is the mortgage markets as a whole, they hate instability. They hate change. They hate to not know what's going on. Everything as the mortgage market and as the ones who affect bond rates, mortgage rates, etc., they look for stability. And now you're seeing stability. You're seeing, okay, Trump's normal, Fed's normal, things are stable. So that risk-based pricing that was getting factored into everything now is pulling back a little bit, which is very, very important.
I'm gonna have to disagree.
Whoa.
I'm gonna
Wow.
have to disagree.
Conflict at the table.
Oh, it's not a conflict. It's crystal ball intuition and our own level of the world. But I was screaming at you guys in the office saying, "Don't buy this upward trajectory,"
Right.
because the erratic nature of Trump, I think that he's still trying to aim towards a goal, which he used a very big gun to try to get there. Maybe the strategy would have paid off. We didn't see it to fruition because it was way too hard line, but I still think that it's going to be used as kind of like this overhanging cloud until we clear the air with the places we want to clear the air in other countries, exports, tariffs, etc. So I don't think that there's stability. I think that there is a bit of a calming before another storm.
So
That's
it's another pause, like there was when he paused the tariff 90 days. It's like one of those where you're going to see a slight bump, but you.
When
think
have
something
you
else
ever
is-
seen Trump once not create some sort of volatility in any of his presidency?
Yeah, but there's a difference now. He's on a mission to be the best there ever was, and he knows, in theory, he can't get another 4 years.
Yeah, but does that mean that he's not going to create instability, or he's going to do the hard things for the long future of the United States?
He has only till the midterms. So whatever he does, he has to the midterms to prove it out, and it has to be proven out, and it has to show that it's working. So not even fully to the midterms. So he's got 6, 8, 9 months max before everything has to start working and humming. He doesn't have the time to be a full disruptor and to completely destroy markets. I mean, if the guy really did, he wouldn't back off immediately on China. China didn't come to the table and say, yeah, let's make a deal. But he realized that the damage in the market is exponentially much more powerful than he thought. I mean, look what happened on Monday alone. Jim Cramer said it this morning. Monday was one of the worst days he's ever seen, and the guy's been in the market 50 years, however many years he's been. One of the worst days he's ever seen in the market compared to the crashes after COVID, compared to the crashes in the 80s when it was when it was Black Monday, whatever the hell that was called.
Right.
That's a major impactful statement. And that's because of Trump. And that guy doesn't want to get that black eye, in my opinion.
So you're saying that, we can never tell for sure. And you're gambling on the fact that he's got some other trick up his sleeve. And what you're saying is he doesn't have time for any more tricks. So you each have your own ideas on it. But I think the thing you can agree on is that his character is he's not afraid of radical decisions. Is he going to make one more? Is
So
the
what
question.
what I'm saying is that I agree wholeheartedly, but that he needs to be humming before the midterms, or else he's in trouble, and then he can't inflict his pain on the other countries.
Well, that's another thing too, is if he doesn't win in the midterms, he has to think about all the other things non-tariff China related that he won't be able to accomplish because he's going to lose that power, right?
Correct.
So if he has other goals.
What I'm saying is that his initial platform and policy that he ran on was to create this new norm for the United States, where they're importing or at least generating revenue from vis-a-vis tariffs to lower
Right.
taxes and do all these things. So if you're saying that he wants to be thought of as the best, and he believes that that's what's going to be the best, then if he doesn't follow through on that, then he failed. Now, whether he course corrected and realized that maybe I may have made a mistake, the impact was a lot too great, didn't anticipate markets. I mean, we can speculate on that forever. But I think that this is just part of the art of the deal, where he now said, hey, look, I'm willing to take the pain. So are the Americans. They voted me in to do that. Instead of me now going full throttle with you guys, let's get to the table and find some sort of happy medium, which was better than the status quo that was prior. That I can agree on. And if you're going to get any pushback from all these other jurisdictions, then you may run into a scenario where they're going to say, okay, well, I might have to pull this tariff thing again. I'm saying that markets are still grossly unstable. And I think we're going to see the biggest change, not necessarily from government policies, but things like AI. And I can't overly emphasize that because it's not normally distributed, all the tools that are out there.
Yeah,
we
if
use
I
them
could
daily.
jump in just to jump on the instability thing you're talking about. So the biggest one that we've all seen recently was tariffs.
Yeah.
And just what was it
Most
today or yesterday? Trump said, "I'm pulling back the tariffs on China." Now, there's other figures associated with that, but how does that impact specifically the housing market for us?
That's huge. And something that people don't realize. Just these changes affects the home buying process, affects pricing, affects everything. So just looking at the numbers, he reduced tariffs on building materials from 25% to 10%. He's cutting duties on home appliances by up to 15%. And he's the phased out reductions in furniture and fixtures over the next 120 days. So now this is a direct correlation between what's going to happen here. So if you look at the numbers, and I just have these in stats, so that's why I'm looking down here. The effect of this, the average new home cost could be decreased by $28,000 to $35,000 based on these changes.
Now, is that a tariff? Is that those decreases are from the increased amount or from the baseline, the benchmark? Because that's what makes a difference.
That's true.
Well, it's probably going to be from the increased amount, but the point is, maybe even if we get back to the baseline, it's better than being completely messed up altogether.
So
At least you're coming back to a little bit of normalcy.
favoring the buyers in general.
Renovation projects now are 10 to 15% more affordable. Appliance packages could be $2,000 to $3,000 less, and they're saying combined with lower rates and monthly payments because of these deductions, you could save an additional $400 to $550 a month off the median price. So they're factoring in 2 rate reductions in June and I want to say in September. That's what the market now is saying.
What do you think those will be? 25?
25 basis points.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a 25 and a 25. So between 2 rate cuts and these tariff cuts, the median home affordability is now $400 to $550, which is huge. And this doesn't even factor into the fact that people that are locked in right now because of the lower rates, when you start seeing rates coming down to sixes, and then ultimately everyone is now looking that the rates could be as low as 5.5. Now, all of this optimism came within hours of all of this stuff.
So, do 25 basis point decreases create enough of a stir in the market to generate activity?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because psychologically, a six handle, which means a 6% base interest rate, versus a seven, psychologically, it's been proven over the last 12 months. Applications for purchases and refinance increased between 12 to 19% increase when you see a six in front of it, but rather than a seven.
So I'm calling a 50 basis point reduction, and I'll tell you why. I think
On the first,
on the first.
Wow.
I'll tell you why.
I like that.
I'll tell you. I'm telling you, and I actually want to mark this down to the date, and then call me back on it, and I'll tell you why. They're back in love again. They're friends again because they had a candid conversation about how do we find a middle ground between paying down the debt and a 50 basis point decrease, will probably cost or save the United States in billions of dollars in paying down that debt, which is what Trump ran on. Doge's whole anatomy is based around. Okay. And it will create this buzz, and then there'll be a holding pattern. And I think that that's probably what happened in behind closed doors.
So you think Jerome Powell and Trump behind closed doors had a meeting, they discussed, and the reason they're friends again is because they've reached this agreement where those rates will come down so significantly.
We got inflation in check. We want to bring new home buyers into the market, right? We've created all these measures that Myra just mentioned in the form of affordability. We want to give that consumer back confidence into it. The markets are now forward looking as always, and they're saying, well, we like the direction we're going. And then the ultimate outcome is to try to reduce that debt so the United States doesn't go bankrupt. I'm calling 50 basis points.
Wow.
I'm calling 50 basis
I'm
points.
going to note that down. Ronan,
Yes,
423, April 23rd, 50 basis points.
50 basis. Not only that, like, just think, you're talking about the psychological aspect that I didn't think about. I mean, it just kind of goes without saying. What does, if 25 basis points creates a positive stir, what does 50 do? And then how does it impact the United States in the same? And that, I think, is a perfect happy medium between where they are.
But on the flip side, does that create too much of a momentum where inflation could kick in again? And the whole point is to do it in a gradual way where inflation doesn't go like this.
It doesn't mean that the next rate meeting will be a cut. It could be a 25 basis point up, averaging out to that 25 on each.
No, they'll never go up again, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, again, we there's
Fingers
things,
crossed.
but there's things we can't anticipate that then we're always being able to evaluate in hindsight. Well, all I'm saying is there is enough of everybody knows that rates have a lag until they impact the market and you start seeing what it actually does on the ground. A home acquisition doesn't materialize until 60 days, generally on average, until after the purchase. Now,
Right.
People are waiting on the sidelines to buy. 50 basis points will get them going, and then the Fed will continuously do what they do, and they reevaluate all these things and price of eggs and everything that makes up that bucket for inflation. Now you've got an economy that's humming, a stock market's generating, being able to buy down the debt on a discount compared to where we are today. And then they'll be like, hey, so first of all, inflation is not a bad thing. And unchecked inflation is a massive problem, right? Like a massive problem, right?
I agree with that.
So I don't see, I see it being a little more dramatic, and it was probably what happened behind closed doors, because Trump, as erratic as we may think he is, and he can come out, he's not making decisions in a vacuum. He's surrounded by incredibly bright, capable people. And the main difference now from what I see on the sidelines with his administration is, regardless of even the pain that Americans feel, and the rest of the world for that matter, he's doing things for what he strongly believes is for the greater good of the country and its future. Regardless of what you think of him as an individual and how the messaging is awful, the methods are you know, contrarian is an understatement, but he's still doing it with the motive that he thinks he'll be able to benefit the country immensely with some of his policies, and he's not doing it alone, right? So I mean, I see that being what happened behind closed doors.
Listen, also Bassett being at the forefront and Navarro being pushed out also is a big factor. Navarro was the whole big proponent of tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. Don't negotiate. Don't do anything. And Bassett steps in and says, "Okay, we have to do it differently. I agree with this, but it has to be done." And I think, in theory, Navarro was correct, but once reality hit in, no one expected everything to happen. But something that was interesting in what they're predicting because of these two events, the construction sector, job creations alone, they're expecting between 95,000 to 120,000 new jobs.
Wow.
Wage growth likely to be 4.5 to 5%. And the job multiplier effect could be as high as 1.7 additional jobs for every construction position.
It's a lot of hope.
That's big.
I think it's I don't know if it's hope. I think it's strategizing. Right? They're forecasting, they're planning, they're hoping. Again, we don't know. We don't know. Anything could happen. But here's a couple of geopolitical things that I think will have positive impact. I think that I think some wars will likely end over the next little while. It's due. It needs to stop. And Trump is strong enough of a leader to step in and really manipulate those situations. So I mean that I think that's going to be positive, and that will flow in through everything. There will be more calm, stability, normalcy, and not money not being spent on battles as opposed to capital infrastructure. That's what I see. I also think that the real estate market, the development market, the construction market needs an overhaul. It needs some new tech. It needs some new ideas. It needs jurisdictions. Like California will be the most interesting one,
Yeah, for
right?
sure. We spoke about that the other day.
And if they don't come up with a genius way of reducing where's the biggest expense? It's in construction. It's in the construction, right? Markets dictate the markup of what people are willing to pay, right? I think scarcity needs to come off the table, right? And how do you do that? By being able to build faster and build cheaper. And then the scarcity goes away.
You know, California is its own thing, but one thing that which is interesting now, all of a sudden the whole thing of recession, everyone was talking about recession. Oh my gosh, we're going into a recession. JP Morgan just revised their recession probability from 38% to 21%.
Wow.
You're talking about after the
Yeah,
Powell announcements?
just today they came back and said this. Now also, Nvidia for the first time is going to be developing their supercomputers and chips and whatever here. Chobani just announced they're doing $1 billion facility in upstate New York. So it's really starting to happen. And consumer confidence, that's what they're expecting to happen. Business investments, which is obviously happening now. And, all of that is going to tie into housing because as these facilities are built,
Right.
you're going to need housing. You're going to need, all of these things. And that's something that I'm going to bring in now. Tesla. What does Tesla's earning miss and all of that have to do with housing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, the segue that you're using where we have to focus on American manufacturing, American jobs, and American production, that ties into the number one car, company for American production, which is Tesla. And they came out with these numbers and everyone was expecting some bad figures, some red, but it was worse than expected.
It was, but what happened in the market today?
Tesla's up.
Tesla's up 17%.
I have interesting thoughts on that. I'm curious what you think.
Well, first of all, tell us what you think because you're from the younger generation. You have a different outlook on this.
I do. And I think that we've discussed a lot how markets are emotional and a lot of things aren't logical, right? And in this situation, to see earnings numbers so terrible, the logical outcome is the stock goes down. And unfortunately, I think Tesla is a unique situation where that stock is so popular. It's one of the most popular discussed topics in all of finance ever.
I don't think it's a stock. I think it's Elon Musk specifically.
Well, I'll get there. And I think in this specific scenario, that Tesla in itself is a mini game. Like everyone is expecting one thing and it always does the opposite because I think, in my opinion, hot take, the game's rigged. And there are people who have more money than us and more foresight than us and more information than us. And anybody who thinks they're going to win on a Tesla prediction is going to be the loser. And you can't see a number go down and a stock go up in a logical way.
I cannot disagree with you more. No, I agree with the rigged, but it depends what rigged means. But I don't disagree with I disagree with the ideology.
Go
Carry
for it.
on.
No, that's basically it.
So-
Is Tesla's a game, and you
Wait,
bet against Tesla.
let me just share the numbers so
Yes,
everyone
please,
has
please.
the perspective.
Yeah.
So the earnings per share that expected was 62 cents a share, came in at 47 cents. Revenue was expected at 23.7 billion, came in at 22.1 billion. Vehicle deliveries were down 7.8% year over year, and operating margins compressed to 7.1% from 11.4% a year ago. So that's the baseline that we're looking at.
Right.
Now go ahead. So
I'll tell you to that.
Right.
Let's put on the table as a fact that earnings were supposed to be a miss, right? They expected a downward trend towards earnings.
How could you say they were expected to be a miss?
Well, that's what analysts do all the time. Before the reporting, they have their baseline as we're
they
expecting
were, but they
this.
didn't expect it to be this bad.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So this is exactly what I'm saying. Regardless of the fact that they expected it to be this bad, okay, they did expect for it to turn down.
Right.
What I'm telling you is that based on Doge's impact and Elon Musk's specific impact, and the anti-Tesla, anti-Elon Musk, anti-Trump administration sentiment, it tells you that the markets believe, regardless of those earnings, they are still a profitable organization, although they may have missed the mark. They have been grossly undersold because markets are emotional. So now they figured they hit rock bottom. It's not going to get any worse. It will only get better from here.
Interesting.
Time to buy the stock. And I'm going to tell you that thing's going to hit 400 in less than 12 months.
I'm curious what you think Tesla has to offer that their competitors don't that would warrant such an optimistic outlook.
I'm glad you asked. They offer ingenuity. They offer other sectors that are going to. So Apple.
Look, he owns two of them.
That's right. We have the Tesla guy.
I don't know the stat on this. You might be able to pull it up, but Apple on its own has, I think, 4 different business lines, like from the AirPods, right? That would, if it's spun off on its own, would be a Fortune 500 company. And they have multiple companies along
I get
the
what you're
App
saying.
Store,
Yeah.
right? Tesla is not just a Tesla. Tesla is information taking. That's going to translate to so many other businesses, the robots that are going to come from it, all the spheres that they're.
Oh yeah, there was a big thing on the robots.
And then
talking about how that's going to be a huge money line for them.
And then Elon Musk has got those solar farms that are eventually going to power the Teslas. And then you're going to have the batteries in the side of houses taking people off the grid. Then you're going to get the solar roofing that's going to come out of Tesla. Like all of these things are intertwined. And here's the best part. Nobody is talking at the moment about the what's it called? The link, the internet.
Starlink.
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 Right. And how that's going to all of these sub businesses are all going to tie into one. And I think that Tesla was overly sold purely based on sentiment
And the hate for Elon because
right.
of Doge.
But if you look at the numbers in the baseline, did it miss earning expectations? Yes. But how much is it earning? It's earning $21 billion annually at the moment.
Revenue.
Yeah.
Revenue. Okay. I don't know what the
No, that's for the quarter. 21.
sorry. I
yeah.
mean, so a company rife with revenue and cash, what's it going to do? Especially when its leader is going to now decouple themselves. Most of the lift that you're seeing has everything to do with Elon and not mostly to do with Elon,
Question
not to do with
regarding
their
this.
earnings.
So if your answer is if Elon steps out, he'll get less hate. Do you really ever think that the branding of Elon Musk is going to change? Like, do you think that all of these people who hate Tesla now are going to come back around? Do you really think that's a possibility?
Not only do I think that there's going to be a spinoff. You're going to see driverless autonomous vehicles, and Tesla will be the first one in line.
It's already done. We have Waymo. We have
But which
Rivian.
vehicles are they going to use?
You say Rivian?
yeah. We have there's all.
Rivian's almost out of business. They
I'm
just
mentioning
raised
competitors.
another round
Rivian,
of
there's
money.
Just
that-
mentioning
that's-
competitors, like we have Waymo now that has already launched in Texas, California. Those things are on the streets already. Self-driving taxis are here. Tesla's not going
Right.
to be the first.
And if Waymo wants to scale and create one additional merger, there are two companies that can give them that command, and that's Uber,
Yes.
right, and Tesla.
If they don't capitalize on Tesla's fault and say, I'm going to be big dog now. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of speculation there that Elon Musk is unkillable, that the Tesla is this stock that has nowhere to go but up, even if you give it like, you're looking at it like the S&P, like long-term bet, Tesla's only going up.
But Tesla is not a one-trick pony. It's all these other companies that are going to be sub companies within Tesla are going to be major contributors in ingenuity. And the information gathering that Tesla has, the IP that Tesla has compared to Waymo, because they've been longer on the street, there's way more of them. They've got worldwide exposure that no other company can actually even come close to matching that. It is a grossly undervalued stock for so many reasons.
But I think it's beyond just Tesla, the name. I think the fact that Elon said he's, instead of being 7 days a week on Doge, he's going to be 1 to 2 days throughout the president's tenure.
Doge is on a timer, right? It evaporates in a few months.
I think he said 1.5 years. I think he said
No, I think
18
it's
months.
in July, I believe. It's
No, they're probably going to extend it. I mean, they're still, and he said today, if it's not monitored, it can easily spiral out of control again. But even so, I mean, if he goes back and says, okay, Doge is going to do its thing and Tesla is going to do its thing and work on Neuralink and Starlink, but what does that say for his confidence in the marketplace? Yeah. Because if you're leaving this and going back, the guy's going to create something, the guy's going to do this, and with the market reacting the way it has, you're going to see major PE firms, money flowing into markets, different investments happening, private equity buying up companies, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities.
So how does it affect the housing market? So we got a little carried away.
Sure.
I'll tell you exactly. Yeah, I've got so many.
Go.
And we touched upon this, and it can't just be glossed over. Our kids, for example, will have a significant chunk of their disposable income not spent on vehicles, not gas, not leases, not finances. They'll call the car. They'll use it to drive back and forth. Maybe it's subscription-based model like you suggested, which, by the way, is genius. And instead of spending $1,000 on insurance, on gas, on maintenance, on finance or lease payments, now they've got an extra bit of money that they can put towards home ownership and acquisition. I also think the home of tomorrow may not need as much driveway space, for example. Or they can use that to monetize for people that want to buy multiple Teslas and put them out on a Turo, for example. Like, if I had more driveway space, I would buy 2 more Teslas today because I can lease them out at around $500 or finance them at about $500 a month, and I could put them on Turo. And based on a half month's Turo investment, where I just put them out, you know what Turo is?
Yeah, it's like Uber, or not Uber, like Airbnb for cars.
It's exactly what it is. So I can put that out, and that one vehicle will generate anywhere between $500 to $1,000 a month easily. Now, I'm talking about net, not gross.
Very controversial topic.
But you're going sideways. Specifically, though, tech drives markets, hands down, in my opinion, right? Most tech companies, right? How do they pay out? You get a base salary and it's a heavy stock bonus type of structure. So recently, with all these tech companies and everything being down, stock price, we had a client. He worked for one of these large Mag 7 companies. The stock price was so affected that he had to go get financing where he was going to pay cash because he didn't want to sell his stock because he'd have to pay capital gains tax on it. And it was so depressed in value. Because of that, he went and got financing. But all of these companies, they issue stock, and that's how they get the talent. So when tech companies and everything are so depressed right now, just the housing effect alone, it's affected by that because they don't have the ability to navigate. because companies entice people by giving them stock. When the stocks are booming, all of these money people have money to flow into the market. Um, Tesla alone just employs 130,000 employees in high density, high areas, like high expensive housing markets.
Right.
These people aren't spending money the way they were before because of what's happening to the stock price.
Good point.
You're not going to sell or do anything to that. So that's another fact. So once all of this comes back and the tech market as a whole comes back, then the sentiment of the general consumer is like, okay, it's okay, it's safe now.
I got a question for you. How do people outside of margin borrow against their stock and equity portfolio? Because I hear a lot, because that's a good way to defer taxes or not pay any taxes. So if you've got, $10 million,
scenario you're talking about with like a Tesla employee has a bunch of Tesla stock.
$10 million, and it doesn't want to sell these shares.
They're basically that you borrow against it. I mean,
How do you do that?
You have to have specific accounts. Like I know Morgan Stanley does that. Goldman Sachs do that. It's a private wealth combination where you pledge your stock and then they let you borrow against it at a certain rate of interest. It's not margin specifically interest because you're not buying stock or whatever the case may be. You pay an interest on it, and then if it ever dips below a certain value, then you'll be forced to a margin,
Like a margin
call that
call,
way. Yeah.
Because then you can avoid taxes. You can avoid
Yeah,
the capital
exactly,
gains.
yeah.
You can avoid all that stuff, right? So you borrow against your portfolio, which is, I mean, I hear that often. I don't even know who actually does it.
So I want to jump into that Elon Musk discussion on a little slightly more Elon Musk focused vision here. You're saying he's stepping away from Doge temporarily or less work there. We could talk about how that affects Tesla, but how does that affect other factors as well? Because you're saying unemployment numbers, government funding, all these things were affected by Doge. Is Doge going to be less effective without Elon Musk constantly there? And if Doge is or is not less effective, how does that affect us?
Is Tesla running while Elon Musk is in the White House?
I don't want to look at their numbers and answer that question.
No, but what I mean is that they're still producing cars, they're still selling cars, they're still
I'm giving you a
functioning,
hard
right?
time, but yes, it would.
He
function.
scaled himself. I think he put in a team of 20 individuals that are incredibly bright. He put in the vision, and they go and execute. I think it's going to function just fine. I don't think it's going to be as intrusive as it was in the beginning, but not spiraling out of control is the whole point, to make sure that the mistakes that were made in the past don't happen again, right? Not just cost-cutting measures.
Sure. So you don't think Doge is changing? Does that affect the market? Or sorry, I'll get Meyer's opinion as well. Do you think Doge is going to be less effective?
No, I don't. I think overall he's gonna have the vision into what's going on. He needed to be there to set up all the checks and balances, the infrastructure, and more importantly, he needed to be there in the first couple of months to fight all of the battles. And he was the one getting beat up in the black eye while all the people were still doing the work. So he had to be, offensive line. He had to be the blocking. He had to do the grunt of the work to make sure that these people can get their job done. And I think now everyone's almost just understood and given up and said, all right, he's going to do what he's going to do, and there's no way we can stop it. So
That's not scary.
listen, at the end of the day, there's a benefit coming out of it. Who knows specifically if it's 800 billion or 500 billion, but there's definitely marked improvement than what it was.
Yeah.
I do really want to touch on that. And there's a little political, I'm sorry, but I wrote some figures down. So during the campaign, he jumped around on stage. He goes, we're going to save $2 trillion. After the campaign, he went on Fox. He says, you know what, a more realistic expectations, we're going to save $1 trillion. This week, he comes out, he says, we're hoping to save $150 billion. Following that interview, very recently, he's come out and said, I think this was yesterday or the day before, they've saved a total of $130 billion. So we're at less than 10% of his initial savings predictions. However, the New York Times did an investigative piece on that, broke it down. Turns out over 30% of that $130 billion is either duplicated contracts where he didn't save extra money, contracts that were already canceled before Trump came into office, or completely fake made up. So if the guy has saved, let's say conservatively, he really did save $130 billion. Is that worth the fact that he was given unlimited access to all these things? Is there?
What's he going to do with it? He's the richest man in the world.
How did he get
Is
there?
he? What do you mean? He's got 7 different companies. Come on. You can't, he's the richest
Okay.
man in the world. Is he going to take your social security number and
Who?
s- and
Or you see how easily
and
he
and,
gave
and,
up?
and,
No, I'm letting him finish.
no, the
Yeah.
guy
Yeah.
he's going to take your social security number and steal your benefits, or what is he possibly going to do with this?
So that's
Would
a-
he
But
jeopardize?
what he's saying is something slightly different, I think.
That's a great question.
Is he
What does he
jeopardize his
stand to
whole
gain?
life?
Well, what does he stand to gain?
Listen,
right?
he got a Tesla contract out of it.
So
No, I'm not
so
gonna
le-
go the
so le-
Tesla
a, cou-
route.
a couple of things.
Go ahead.
That $2 trillion quote was over 10 years. Let me clarify.
Okay.
There's interest exposure income on the money he's actually saved. And what he did, more importantly than any of the numbers that are quantifiable as a snapshot of a 4-month term, is he stopped a bleeding of money that was getting
And he made
poured out
everyone
and printed
accountable.
That's interesting.
going elsewhere. Now, do I think that his goal, look how much that $2 trillion, which is a crazy number to throw
Right.
out, how similar it is to Trump's tariff talk,
Yeah.
right? It was made to put everybody on notice.
Yeah.
It's an, find out, F around, find out kind of statement. So anybody who was bleeding the government, had nefarious activities, they're done, right? And
Mm.
people that become addicted to money, especially if it's easy money, they never stop. They go until the limit, until they get caught, or they tap out.
But this doesn't apply to Elon.
Not in the least bit. I think that
Interesting.
we're going back to the statement I made about I believe they wanted to do the right things for the right people, and I think that that's the sentiment throughout the White House. But here's my tinfoil hat on now, and I also don't think that any of these people are even close to being stupid and didn't have. And I'm not championing Elon because the next thing I'm going to say is the hit he took today was to plant the seeds of the future of what he wanted to do with Trump for his companies that will benefit him tremendously, both in defense, solar, internet, robotics. And I'm sure that because of his hit, if you will, that he took, the benefit when he comes out of being in the White House, if you don't think that he set the table and the wheels in motion for his companies to benefit tremendously from new government policies coming from Trump down, I also think that everybody's extremely naive. Okay.
I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Right.
I can't-
He's,
yeah.
So I would be betting on Elon, not only because of Elon, because he's smart and he's got the direct line to the most powerful man in the world.
That's where I was
If you don't
going.
think that
Yeah.
he's putting in, planting the seeds of things that will benefit him and his organization and his employees and hopefully the world in the same time, then okay. And I don't know how much of a conspiracy theory that is. I think that's fact. And how much lobbying was done, how much billions of lobbying money was spent for people to do the exact same thing. Now he doesn't have to do that. He said, I lost X, they lost $500 billion in market cap since he's been there. I think it's even number might even be a little higher than that.
Give him a few years, is what you're saying.
It was one I'm saying. Yeah, I think that his seeds have been planted for the future of what he wants to do, and he's going to be right at the top of the food chain because of what's been done now. That was the cost of doing, but that was his opportunity cost that will probably pay 100x versus what it cost him today.
So that's an interesting roundabout back to the Tesla stock, which was, that was the conversation I was really getting at. This was a tag team effort. They both got
For
what they
sure.
wanted. In a couple of years' time, we'll know what they got.
Right.
There you go.
But
So now I want to segue, and we're going to close up here soon, but I want to segue where I think some of the key markets that are going to benefit from what's happened in the next. And these
everything.
and these are markets where not everyone's going to look at, but I think you're going to get opportunity where you can get good deals. You can make, great cash flow, great returns if you're an investor. The manufacturing corridor, the states that, the cities that deal with a lot of manufacturing, Cleveland, Detroit, Pittsburgh, I think there's going to be a lot of factors that come in where you can get in there, affordability, you can get in because of the construction activity. I think those markets will do well. I think also you'll have Phoenix, Atlanta, Nashville. Those areas will do well too because of the whole, situation that's happening with the construction. And in the Midwest, the parts you have Indianapolis, Columbus. These are all not markets that everyone would look at, but these are markets that stand to benefit because of the different things that are happening in the United States based on today's events and the fact that Trump is really pushing this agenda to have companies come in and manufacture here in the U.S.
So those are big hubs where you think people should be looking to buy.
Possibly, yeah. I think there's going to be opportunity than your regular, like, I still think Manhattan, Los Angeles, these areas are still grossly overvalued, and I don't think you're going to get the same type of opportunities that if you'd go into these sub-secondary markets. And I know Ronan loves those types of markets.
Yeah, I honestly, one of the in Florida, I remember going with my kids to Cape Canaveral, and I'm driving down a street that really has nothing. But from my experience in the past, I see the trenches dug on the side, and you see all the servicing pipes, meaning services are coming. I'm like, I don't see any homes here. There's no construction. There's no sites for sale. And what do I see out in the clearing? These two massive buildings, the SpaceX and Deep Blue, and like massive, beautiful tower was out in the middle of nowhere, like coming right off of Daytona, which is the next closest hub into the water. So I'm going, oh my God, this is the place to go. Nobody's putting capital infrastructure and erecting these buildings there without anticipating the bodies to fill those buildings, right? So you could see these signs, they're literally right in front of you. To bring services through to these places that didn't have any servicing is a very expensive proposition. Any developer that's a small to medium size, what do? They follow the big players. Why? Because they put in the servicing. It's a very expensive thing to do. And you want the services at least at the lot line, so then you can pull them out and piggyback off all those things, which is exactly what's happening. So those sort of opportunities and jurisdictions, like, I mean, when we're talking about Florida, I would be all over Daytona.
I like that. Interesting. All right, so let's tie it up here. We have a couple of key takeaways. Now more than ever, we're seeing, I feel, stability from the Fed and the government. They're aligned. Their interests are aligned. The market's definitely reacting well. We're looking at affordability coming back into play. We're looking at stability in the mortgage rates. And there's a definitely consumer sentiment and market sentiment that rates are coming down. That's going to unlock opportunities for refinances, for purchases, for affordability factors. But it all means you have to be ready. You have to take action and you have to be prepared. That's the key. Opportunity is only as good as how prepared you are to take action on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what it comes down to. As a purchaser, as a homeowner, as someone who's in the market, you need to take the necessary steps to prepare yourself. Listen to these sort of podcasts, sign up, register, join us, follow us, do whatever is needed, because this is what we talk about. And this is going to get you ready for when you need to make that next step.
And when those rates come down, you got some optimism now. So when those rates come down, not if.
Yes, I agree.
We're going to see more refis. Prep yourself for that. Learn the value of your property. Learn how you should structure so you can qualify for your loans. Get your refis ready. Next, look out for those markets. Anything that's going to benefit from increased construction and lower construction costs, that's where you should be looking if you want to buy.
To add to that, I would say that anybody who's looking to get into the real estate acquisition game, investor or primary, get pre-qualified. At least understand the doc requirements in advance. Do the heavy lifting. That way, when you do see the deal, you can pull the trigger. Because I remember everyone asking, when there's a deal, I'll buy. When there's a deal. And guess what happened? Deal comes out. People that are prepared, it goes in minutes. And if you're not prepared, you can't. A pre-qualification is so easy to do. So at least you've done the heavy lifting up front. You actually know what your barrier and baseline is to acquisition. And if you want to be ruthless, offer lower and close out lower, but at least you know where your top cap is.
I think to your point, the Zillow hottest market list for 24, they were saying like the houses turnaround time in those markets was like 3 to 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that without pre-approval.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, wonderful session today.
Another one.
Yeah, that was great.
Another one in the books.
Let me play us out all the way up.
Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up.